What does real success look like? Jim Sabellico breaks down why it's not about the scoreboard, how missing your son's birthday became his wake-up call, and the simple practice that changes everything, one decision at a time. Now available. Awakening I Am, Internal Awareness in an AI Age audiobook, and our Victory Builders platform, which integrated system for founders who execute, is open, links in the description. If we were alive in a room together and not listening on a podcast, and I was to X, the room to define success, and we went around, if it was 20 people in the room, there would probably be 20 different definitions of success. Some people define success about the money that they make, others about the balance of life, work balance, that new phrase. Some people define success as how many vacations that they can take, or the car that they can purchase, or something material. But we want to have our conversation today centered around a unique perspective about what success looks like in this modern context of entrepreneurship, where we can really get a working definition that may work for all of us. Because it's good to have goals, and once you meet your goal, you create a new goal, and once you create a goal, you create a new goal, right? And then we're on this wheel, and sometimes we lose perspective. And many entrepreneurs suffer from loss of identity. They position their identities within their companies or within their grassroots endeavors, whatever it is that they're attacking at the moment. And that can be good, but if you don't really have a real thought point of what success means, what success looks like, then you will probably won't even have an end point. My name is NaRon Tillman. This is the Walk in Victory podcast, where we sit you at the feet of the masters and we have conversations geared towards helping you grow. These conversations are intentional, the questions are thoughtful, and we always like to at least get one takeaway that we can give to our audience. Today's master is Jim. How are you, sir? You're muted.
Oh, sorry about that. I guess it must have
No,
auto
no
muted
problem.
me, but I'm doing
How
well.
you doing
Thank you.
today? If we were to use the word success, what does that
Yeah,
look to
I
you?
love your intro there because I think it means so much to so many different people. And to me, my definition of success currently is the ease at which you can bring joy into a situation. And the reason why I kind of came to that conclusion was because it brings it back internal. So it doesn't allow your achieving success or not to be defined by anybody else. And I think that there are so many people who put success as a car, a house, or some other like thing that you can measure, right? Put up on a scoreboard. And I understand why, because it it makes it easier to see if you've gotten there or not. But it also allows other people to qualify if you're successful. You need that other thing to be in order to be deemed successful. And so for me, defining it as the ease in which you can bring joy into a situation allows it to be between me and me alone. It's if I can enter in any situation, whether it's health, financial, just general life, sometimes life is going to suck. It's going to be a little bit frustrating, a little difficult. But if you can bring joy into that, if you can bring presence, if you can bring appreciation and gratitude, the rest of it tends to fall in line in perspective. And your ability to do that with ease, right? How quickly you can look at a situation and say, all right, man, I understand this situation is going to be a little rough. Here's what we're going to do, right? And training that muscle to continue to walk into everyday life and be present and not be, struck with anxiety, be struck with depression, but just be in true gratitude for where you're at in life. Like living that way, to me, that's what success feels like.
Yeah, that's a great answer, and that sounds like it took some deep work. Explain to us how did you get to this point? What um, do you bring to the podcast world and to the world that you are successful in? Self muted again.
That, yeah, sorry about that. I'll
There
pay
you go.
attention to that from now on. A great question, and it took a lot of intentional work. 6.5 years of literally dedicating my life to get to this point, and I would say I'm nowhere near the peak. Definitely way better than I was, way more present, way more joyful, way more just loving. But it wasn't always that way. And the early part of my life was defined by those kind of traditional versions of success when it came down to money, car, house, that stuff. I chased that for a long time up until October 29th, 2019, 8:45 p.m. when my son's 6th birthday. And I remembered vividly because I came home at 8:45 at night and I walked into a half of a birthday cake on the kitchen table. Realizing, man, no matter what you have in the bank, no matter what kind of car you got parked in the driveway, no matter whatever else, if you have no relationship with your kids, no relationship with your wife, I was literally on like the brink of divorce, realizing it. Like every metric that you could look at was in the gutter aside from the stuff on the scoreboard. And realizing that and realizing that's not the way that I want to live, that's not the legacy I want to have, that's not the life I want to lead, gave me that realization like something's got to change. So I did a lot of intentional work and got with a mentor and continued to sharpen my own axe and figure out, hey, what are the areas that I need to grow in? And it's been a daily pursuit since.
And that's amazing because I used to always subscribe to the fact that if you show me businessman of the year, he may not be husband of the year. And sometimes when we're young pursuing, we trade those values and they don't really mean that much to us. But as we get older and we start to look at us, right, we start to say, okay, I missed the games, I missed this, I missed that, and you don't get them back. Now that you have gone through this 8:45, I can't remember the date on your son's birthday, and you started from there. What are you doing now? I know you're podcasting. I know that you're helping others to identify what it is that you
Yeah,
have.
I've been spending most of my time having these types of conversations. To me, one of the biggest things that helped me work through this was a picture of possibility. So we go back to that moment where like, hey man, I realize this is not where I want to be in life. This is not what I want my life to feel like. What next? And so getting around somebody that had the real life version of what I thought I wanted at the time, right? So you want to be the family man, you want to be the husband, you want to be the father, you want to be the business owner, you want to be all of that stuff is cool. But if you can't see it, touch it, talk to it, it makes it really hard to understand like, hey, how do I get there? Having a person like that in my life who made it normal, right? Because then I could like actually have a conversation, say, hey, how do you deal with this situation? Or see how they structure their calendar. How do they speak? How do they talk? What books do they read? To get around that person and make it real gave me something to work with. So for me, I feel like, hey, I'm at this point now where no, do I think I'm 100% perfect? But absolutely not. I have a lot of work to do. Do I think I'm far enough on the journey to now start reaching back and helping somebody else who's maybe just looking at this and saying, what do I do? How do I start? To me, that's where I view myself at in the journey, is kind of in that midway point where now I can reach back and be a picture of possibility for someone else to say, hey man, maybe I too can figure out how do I show up in business and also as a dad? How do I honor my wife and myself? How do I do all of those things, right? And show up intentionally in all those ways. So for me, man, that's the view I take. If I was blessed with this day, like if God woke me up today with breath in my lungs and purpose in my heart, I'm going to use every freaking breath that I have to continue to push toward that, to not take advantage of it, to not waste it, to actually be here and show up intentionally. That if someone sees me and this happens to be the last recorded version of my voice, that whoever's hearing it hears the intentionality and the authenticity behind it and takes that to heart, where they can actually start living the life that they were destined to live as well. You're muted too. Yeah.
So I was saying that's good, and I want to unpack this for someone that may be listening and saying, "Hey, this sounds good in theory, but I'm running this business. I have payroll to meet, and I just need my wife to understand and my kids to understand this is for their future. I'm doing this for, and when you're in that loop, both of us being New Yorkers, that fast pace, that mindset is running. We're constantly earning. We're constantly looking the bigger picture, but we're probably looking at the bigger picture with our wants, needs, and desires in mind, juxtaposed to what is beneficial to the family as and such. And for this might work, but for I just want to be in that loop. But what are two things, key components that you tell a person who's saying, Jim, NaRon, you guys are really
Yeah.
missing the point here.
Number one is I would say for that person, you're 100% right. And until you build up that muscle, it feels impossible. The easiest way to climb Mount Olympus is to make sure that every step you take is in that direction. Right? So that's a number one is, hey, if you want to achieve that goal, whatever that goal is for you, just take those really simple actions in that direction and eventually you will start making progress. That's a number one. Number two to that, and really in line, is communication. Communication is one of my favorite words because it solves so many problems. And I very much understand the mentality of, hey, you're hustling and grinding for your family. And I think that there's a part of that once you get in that mindset, you almost start to resent your family. Hey, man, how could you? And there was a period of time where I resented my wife. Hey, how could you have this birthday cake without me? I was out working hard for the family and you didn't respect me, that type of thing. And in the moment, you feel it because you feel like I'm trying to do all this and I'm sacrificing for my family. But in reality, what did I do? I left her to be responsible for all of it. And if it was the type of thing where I said, hey, I am really in a bad spot right now with this client who I really need to take care of this. Do you mind doing me a favor? X, Y, and Z, right? If I muted me again. That that communication part is to be able to speak to each other clearly and communicate, hey, this is where I am, this is what I need. Just being able to have that open communication, which again is a skill that takes time to develop. I think most people aren't even comfortable communicating what they need to themselves. But if you can communicate it to somebody else, you will find that friction removes fast.
It's funny. Let's lean in on this communication piece because as entrepreneurs, we have to communicate our business, have to communicate our before and after whatever, whether it's a product, good or service that we're providing, what is going to be their end, right? Why choose us over our competitors? So we have to think that communication through. Usually what happens, we develop a blind spot where we don't learn how to communicate outside of that. Like Coach Belichick had to be a great communicator because he won all those championships. He got everybody in line, but then when he stands in front of the podium, it's like he can't even talk. He may feel uncomfortable. How do you, what is one of the things that you had to do to work on communicating your emotional IQ? What is some of the things
I
that
would
you did?
say humility is a number one in there and understanding that it's bigger than just you. Because I think for a lot of people, when you look at communicating something, like you're communicating it from your perspective and your understanding, right? And you already know the entire thought because it's in your head. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to explain to that other person this thought that's in your head and you have all this other context, right? You've spent your entire life building this story in your head and you're trying to communicate it in a couple words. Sometimes you're trying to do it in a text message that has zero context and you get frustrated when they don't understand. And so I think it's this part where once you understand it's bigger than you, right? And you're serving a greater purpose and you are doing a thing for the benefit of the team, right? And you're not looking out for, hey, how do I just communicate this because that's important to me? But you're making sure that communication is received well. It's the 4 parts of communication that I think people really miss. Man, of course, when I talk when I talk about
Part one.
communication, it means so the 4 parts super important. What is heard, what is said, what is meant, and what is understood. Okay, those are the 4 parts of communication that people have to really master. And most people just stop with what is said. Oh, I communicated it to you. Not really. If I didn't understand what you said, it was not communicated. Okay, and that takes some accountability from my part. I got to be accountable for all parts of that, even the parts that are not really in my control. We got to make sure if we're having a conversation, you can hear me, right? I'm not just speaking, and this is a great metaphor. If I'm over here speaking and my mic is muted, that yes, I communicated it, you didn't receive it, right? So I love that in real time.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good part. If you can communicate that and really get people to understand, like, we can move forward together.
So communication being the real big cog. Let's talk about how has this transformation helped you in business? Has it? Have you seen an uptick in the way that you deal with problems or the way that you manage systems and all of that? Has it poured into the business
Yes,
side?
100%. So I will say matter of factly, and I don't mean to not look at you, just to be clear. My camera's over here, my screen's over here, and I want to
No,
make sure I don't get muted. But
yeah, I
I will
understand.
say this for sure. For those first years where I was focused so heavily on the business and making money and making sure that the scoreboard was looking good, I did really well for myself. When I changed to make sure the priority was, hey, how do I show up in all areas of my life? How do I show up as a father, as a husband, as myself, right? To care for myself. And I put that as a priority. The businesses grew. Okay, so I would spend less time in the business, but because I myself was operating at such a better place, I was able to give it a more pure form of energy. The result was a little bit more concentrated, right? It got a better result because it wasn't having to be this different version of me everywhere I went. I was able to show up as me, the same version of me everywhere I was. So that same set of core values applied to a conversation I would have with my son compared to a conversation I treat you differently because you're my son or you're my employee. I'm going to care about you regardless the same. Okay, and that level of integrity and care and intentionality is going to apply in both places. And I feel like for me, that made it so much easier because I didn't need to spend so much energy being a different version of me everywhere I went. I was able to just be me. And I was able to move fluidly through this stuff at a much greater speed.
Yeah, and that's important, right? We want to show up consistently, and if you're listening, so the other C would be consistency, right? Communication and it's. I started teaching yesterday at this wellness center, working with youth and young, doing yoga, and I said we want to be consistent. Part of what I like to do when I'm working with young people is to help their vocabularies. Anybody knows what consistent means? And they're like, no, what isn't it? So we set it all together. And at the end of the class, the little boy, yes, we got to be, how you say that again? Like, yes, we got to be consistent. And it's difficult to be consistent when you're angry. So you give your client the best version, the fake version of you, and then you come home and yell at the dog and isolate yourself in the room from the family because you're not angry with them, but you're angry with yourself. Talk. Let's end this conversation on that. How do we get over the competitive nature of what it is as being an entrepreneur? We have to be competitive. We have to have some type of ego in order to be. But we get over the resentment when the deal falls apart, and we sometimes don't like ourselves and the energy that we're bringing into the world. How was that for you? Because I know in that process of healing, you had to go through some real tough days and self-reflection,
Yeah.
right?
So it's a great question. And to me, I would say the important part, to break down as simply as possible, is to feel your feelings without being your feelings.
Mm.
The original thought there is, right, you want to take that resentment and put it in a box and then just go home, and you're going to be frustrated and you're not going to really show up as genuine you for the rest of the day to your wife, to your kids, whatever, because deep down you're holding on to this thing that you're afraid to just unleash. And at some point you're going to scream at the dog because the dog did nothing wrong, but the dog just happens to be the closest one who gets that fury because you never processed it the first time. I think that's a really healthy part about feeling your feelings and being pissed. You should be pissed. Hey, if something didn't go right, cool, be pissed. Learn from it, feel the feeling, figure out, hey, how do I not have to feel this feeling again? Implement the change and then move forward. But just storing this in a box and pretending like, all right, cool, I got to put on a different version of myself to go home and be dad now. You're just really half-assing it is what it comes down to, right? And you're not able to show up in all these places because you're holding on to that stuff, afraid to feel your feelings. And I feel like that's part of being that next level person is understanding feelings are real. We're allowed to be sad. How often do you see dudes cry? Not enough. Do you feel a feeling? Yes. Do you box it up and pretend that you don't have to because you're seen as weak? Yes. This is not the way to do it. You got to be human. All of us are human. All of us do this stuff, but we pretend that we're special and don't. You got to feel your feelings and just run through them in the time that they're needed to feel. Then move on. Okay, but you can't drag it out and pretend that like it doesn't exist or you're going to tough it out. Yes, don't mistake what I'm saying for the fact that you can't just wimp your way through stuff. Sometimes you're going to have some grit and work through some stuff that's uncomfortable. Right? Some of the best stuff in your life is going to happen when you go through some uncomfortable things. But you got to feel those too. Right? You got to feel that discomfort because that's when you know that you're pushing through to something that's meaningful. Okay, you got to feel those feelings and not be afraid to be a little uncomfortable, a little unsettled. I think when you understand that part and really lean into it and look at that as a key, you're like, hey man, I feel uncomfortable. Good. That's a good thing. That's a sign that like you're growing, that you're progressing, right? If you're just even all the time and you don't feel feelings, it means you're not pushing yourself, right? You're supposed to lose some games once in a while. I know that's like contrary to belief, but if you win 100% of the time, it means you're not pushing. Okay. And that's an important context. Like this really nuanced when we talk about consistency. A lot of people, when they think consistency, that they want to win 100% out of 100%. Let me tell you something. If you're winning 100% of the time, I'll say that again because I don't know what got cut off. But if you're 100% of the time, the difficulty level on your game is not high enough. You got to increase that sucker up, right? Because that's where you're going to grow. You should lose sometimes. You should feel the feeling of like frustration and failure. It's a good thing. So lean into that.
And for those of you listening, like this is a real good conversation in context because the mic kept just muting on its own, my mic muted on its own, but we still was able to get our thoughts across because we understand that adversity is going to come. And it's not to get frustrated about or to say, man, we talk our self-talk and I want to end on this. Our self-talk is vitally important because it's the way that we communicate to ourselves is how we're going to show up to the world, right? So if I'm always self-loathing, if I wake up in the morning and I say today's going to be a long day, or if I wake up and say, oh, everybody's against me, if I wake up and I'm saying this to myself, the world is going to present what it is that I've communicated to myself. And I'm going to say, see, shoe always drops. See, everything always that what can go wrong always goes wrong. Who cares about me? And I start to create these narratives, and that's unhealthy. And we have a lot of people that are financially successful that are not kind to themselves. So my last question is how do you communicate kindness to yourself to help you stay grounded and continue to show up on a consistent communicative way?
I love it.
See, I put all of that stuff in
I would say just allowing yourself to be real, to get back to that childhood version of you that didn't have to just be a different version depending upon the weight of the world. There's something really beautiful in the authenticity of a kid who just wants to dance because they want to dance. Like, They don't care about people are judging them. They don't care about the rest of the stuff. The only reason they care about that is because someone told them at some point that they're not supposed to. And like all of us could go back to that if we want to. There's nothing stopping us from doing it other than that judgment, the weight we carry around. So to me, it's like understanding that you get a choice. You can at any point in time to decide, I'm just going to do that thing. I'm going to choose to be happy. I'm going to choose to be joyous. I'm going to choose to just use this day. And like you said, I could choose to believe I'm unlucky, or I could choose to believe I'm lucky. And whatever you choose, you are going to find evidence of both. So just decide. Decide what you want. It's literally as simple as that. Like I feel people overcomplicate the crap out of this. It's really simple. Just decide what you want your life to look like, and then keep looking for evidence that's true. And it will be. It's really simple. Yeah, it's gonna beat the crap out of you in the process. So you need some good people along your side to walk with you and keep you encouraged when it gets hard until you build up those muscles. And you're gonna need them for the rest of your life. No matter how long I've been doing this journey, there's still some new adversity that comes along where I still need that person. Okay, your feedback loop gets shorter. You learn to process it quicker. You understand, hey, how do I fail faster? And that gets easier the more you do it, but it still happens. Okay, so you got to build around you of people who are going to look to support you, who are going to love you, appreciate you, help you feel seen and heard. Critically important. But you also got to, at the root of all of that, is believe that you were worth all of that. Okay, and that's so super critical. Because if the root story that you tell yourself is you're broken, you're damaged, you're not good enough, you're not important enough, you're whatever, you're not worth it, the rest of it doesn't matter if it falls off. Right? You got to understand that you were put on this earth by God for a purpose. Okay, and that purpose is going to look different to everybody. You may be a podcaster, you may be shy, you may be a celebrity with a following, you may be someone who has 4 really good friends. Doesn't matter. No one is more important than anybody else. Okay, our society puts labels of importance on people because they do, but that does not define your worth. Only you get to do that. Okay, and if you shortcut yourself by saying you're not worth it, man, you're selling yourself super short. So decide that you are worth it. Decide that your story is worth it. Decide that this day is worth something. Decide that you can actually do something and improve your life because you're worth it. Okay, decide that you're going to take this day that has been given to you and you're going to freaking use it to its maximum. That you're going to crash in your bed at the end of the night and be like, damn, that was a good day. You could do it if you decide to. But you got to decide to do it. So just make that decision and just keep making decisions like that over and over again. One decision at a time. That's all it is.
Well, there you have it, everybody. I told you that we sit you at the feet of the masters. Listen, one decision a day, compounded over 365 days, will take you a whole lot further when you look back over the year and see where you started and where you landed. So we're not talking about just coming in and taking dramatic changes. This is not a Ozempic for the mind. This is about real simple building, stepping towards a greater version of yourself, a greater version of yourself, a greater version of yourself. Listen, all of Jim's information is in the descriptions. If you are on your journey, an entrepreneur, and you find yourself spiraling, and you need a mentor, you need somebody that has already done it. One, you can listen to the podcast, all of the information here for that. Follow him on social media because he shares information there. But he also opens up for entrepreneurs that are looking to find this balance that we just talked about. That will not actually decrease the value of your organization or your business, but actually add value to your organization and your business, and you can be happy and still make money. And finally, we don't ask you for cash apps, Venmos, or any of those things. We do ask is that you hit like, share, and subscribe. Your likes, your shares, your subscriptions, and if listening on a platform where you can leave a comment, helps these conversations get to the ears of those who need them most. We don't walk making excuses. We don't walk with our head down. Together we strive and we walk in victory. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.